Hello, my beauties. How are you doing? It is I, Charles. I am not here to sway opinions and minds, but to preach only to the converted. So, I hope you will enjoy this video. We're going to talk about the maps which helped to generate the Atlantis legend. Now, the Atlantis legend could not have been generated without access to certain maps. So we're going to look at certain maps, and we're going to see if we can deduce some details of the Atlantis legend based on old maps, and explain some curiosities of the Atlantis legend, which can only be understood using old maps, in particular the Mappa Mundi. In addition, we're going to explain that the Mappa Mundi must be very old, Bronze or Stone Age, because they are in essence the pyramid religion in map form, what the pyramids were attempting to achieve. So let's get started. So do you guys remember years ago, I talked about how the Greek maps are based on the other missing half of the Pythagoreans map. Now, why is that? How is that? It's that. Look, you see there's a straight line there. It's been ripped off. Africa is torn. It's abbreviated. Yeah, there's a bit of Spain, but that's almost a straight line going all the way there, you see? Because that is based on the other half of the Pythagoreans map, which they seem to have had. And all the Greek maps seem based on this, because all the Greek maps are copied from maps in Alexandria, and perhaps earlier on as well. So when we go to the Pythagoreans map, we actually see exactly that. There's the bit of Africa which has been lopped off, and some Spain as well, and we don't have further north. So there would have been more. There would have been a lot more. So I presume this would have been a world map. How do we know? Because of the sheer accuracy of America. So you'd think these people would have access to the whole world map. How else do we know they would have had a whole world map? Because in the Atlantis legend, it says the world back then was navigable. The oceans were navigable. You could travel across to the opposite continent. You could trade orichalcum, presumably from Michigan. Fascinating stuff. Absolutely incredible. Now, when we look at the Pythagoreans map, another thing is that the pyramid religion itself, they knew the size of the planet and all the dimensions. So the maps were actually a lot better than in, say, Columbus's time, because they would have used the real dimensions of the world on their maps. Right. So there we have Cuba. Now, do you notice the word Cuba is the same as Japan? Japa, Kipangu, Cuba, because they thought that this was Japan. And Columbus, according to legend, forced his sailors to admit that they were in Asia, just so he'd have witnesses to tell the king and queen over in Castile. Just fascinating indeed. Now, according to the Atlantis legend, now here is a curiosity, right? A sheer curiosity. It says here, there is a narrow entrance to the Mediterranean. Yonder is the real ocean. Now, a confederation of kings, etc., etc., etc. Okay, here we go. It says here, in front of the Pillars of Hercules, there is an island larger than Libya and Asia, and it was possible for travellers to cross it to other islands, from the islands to the whole of the continent against them, which encompasses the veritable ocean. Now, this is not on any map. There is nothing there on our maps. So you're going to say, well, how the hell is it there? Well, no one's really... I put it to you, on the Mappa Mundi, it's right there, which means that they had Mappa Mundis in ancient times. Don't believe me? Let's look at the Hereford world map, 1300 AD. This is a Mappa Mundi. In other words, it needs these. They wanted these ancient maps. This was from England, to show that the world was round, which meant they had to put all the land mass as much as possible, squeezing it into this. Here is the Mediterranean Sea going up into the Straits and Black Seas, etc., etc., Caspian Sea. Here we have, I think that's the Nile there. And here, for some reason, we seem to have more rivers going off to there. And there's actually Babylon. It's an island in a river, which is quite interesting. Over here, you'll have India, etc., etc., and get up to Asia. So they wanted to emphasize the land rather than the ocean on the Mappa Mundi. So it was all about, in other words, in the Dark Ages, it was all about land travel. You don't do sea travel. The seas are not important. That shows that the people were not really doing sea travel. But there are elements of this which are left over from ancient times, which are most interesting. What I want to draw your attention to is what's in front of the Pillar of Hercules. Oh, so there's the two pillars, and right there is an island in front. That's just an ornamentation on the map, that's nothing. Right there is an island. I can't read what that says. I'm not very good at the Gothic font, but that is an island right in front of the Pillars of Hercules. And I put it to you, that is, I presume it's the Rock of Gibraltar or something like that, and on which the pillars are standing. But they could have looked at ancient maps such as Mappa Mundi and said, well, look at that, there it is. And here's the thing, there's other islands. If you wanted to represent something in Cuba or America or something like that, here is UK, look at that. They've squeezed it onto the edge. There's Ireland. I believe that's Ireland there. That's Wales. Okay, yeah, that's Britain. Wales. Valia, there it is, Vala. Wales means wall. That offers dyke. They built a wall, so they call it Wallia on the Latin maps. That's Wales. That's where it comes from. No one knows that except my viewers, because they're just not thinking. I don't know. They're just not thinking. And here we must have Hibernia, Ireland. So Hipper, Britain, Hyperborea. That's Hyperborea, right? And just fascinating. And if you wanted to represent more other islands, you'd put them on the Mappa Mundi. Fascinating stuff. Now, something else about the Mappa Mundi, it's the pyramid religion. It occurs to me that the pyramid had to be in the center of the world because the purpose of the Mappa Mundi is to divide the world up into equal land area, with the geographical center of the land area being the pyramid. Now, that's what I've deduced about the pyramid religion. So, okay, what's at the center? So at the center is something very strange. It's that. And it's that. And that, it says there, Jerusalem. And it seems to be in Jerusalem is incorporated it's like a cross in a circle, and it's incorporating like north, south, east, west to quadrisect the world. So the whole thing is a map of the world alchemy symbol, the earth. It seems to be walled, some kind of fortress. It says Bethlehem here. There's some kind of thing there. And it's a grand map. It's absolutely amazing. Look, this seems to be Crete with the Cretan labyrinth. As for the pyramids, let me see. I'm hypothesizing, because I can't read this font very well. I'm hypothesizing those are the pyramids, and they look a bit, they're red coloured, and they look like tents, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. There's a cross on top of one, or it's a tent or something. Quite interesting indeed. So anyway, yeah, so back to Jerusalem, the center of the map, it looks like that. So you've got the compass points, and then you've got other things pointing to the other, north, south, east, west, etc. Where have we seen that before? Where have we seen that before? Hang on. There it is. Absolutely fascinating. There it is. This is Mount Meru in the Asian tradition. You see a labyrinth or a pyramid in the center of the world, and it's basically colored white like stone or like the moon. And there's the round Mappa Mundi, and you have this coming out of it like a world tree. So that's in the center of the world. There it is. So something like that is drawn as Jerusalem, and this is the Kailasa temple in India. And so this would have been a world center too. So what you have here, notice, look, a stone cube. Where do we have the stone cube? We know there's a Kaaba. We know, and here, look, here is another one basically. It is in India, and this looks like what's on the Hereford Mappa Mundi, what is supposed to be at the center of the world. You have the elephants pointing in different directions, and I believe the compass points go that way because the cube or the pyramid or whatever has to be pointing to the compass points. Isn't this incredible? Isn't this incredible? And it goes on, people. It goes on quite a lot. So that's the Jerusalem version. So this would have been seen in the Middle Ages as the Temple of Solomon. It is, of course, the Temple Mount, a kind of mosque, and before that, possibly something else, octagonal, a bit like the I Ching, which is quite interesting. And there's a lot of Asian tradition here as well going on. Oh, now remember in the last video we talked about how Christianity and world worship, the earlier version of Christianity is tied to world worship. So here we have a drawing of a missing triptych from the 1700s. And usually in a triptych you'll have 3 saints. Or you might have Joseph here and 2 women. Or you might have Jesus, Mary and Joseph. Or you might have God the Holy Spirit, etc. And the Son. But usually it's a bunch of saints. But look, they're worshipping the earth. That Hereford Mapamundi, the reason it's shaped as it is in order to hang it inside this triptych. Oh, now that's a problem, because suddenly what we're doing is what I call pre-Buddhism, the early version of Buddhism, what the druids did, what the Pythagoreans did, which was basically worshipping planet Earth itself, deducing its coordinates, deducing everything about it. This is why the Great Pyramid has all the coordinates of Earth dialed into its structure, because they were worshipping the Earth. They were calculating it all the time. And in the middle, you're supposed to have that pyramid. This is the pyramid religion mixed with Christianity, you see? And that's still in the Celtic cross, of course. So you could cross that if you wanted to. But that doesn't seem to have been done here. So here you have basically proto-Buddhism, world worship, mixing with Christianity. I mean, it is absolutely amazing. Okay, now there's another aspect of the Atlantis legend which we have covered, and that is essentially that Atlantis was said to be a rectangular plain. So did they have access to Matthew Paris's maps as well? According to the Atlantis text, Atlantis is a rectangular plain, which is 3,000 by 2,000. Now, this is smaller than that. This is 130,000 square kilometres. Atlantis would be 260,000 square kilometres. So we could double the size. Now, if you want to double the size of this, which is quite interesting, 9,000 BC, you could do that, because 9,000 BC, the temperatures had become a lot warmer. So you could live here. And in addition, the sea level was 50 to 60 meters lower. People say, if there was an ancient civilization, how come we don't find it? Well, we've explained a few reasons why, but another reason was it was underwater. It's underwater, guys. 50, 60 meters ain't nothing. That's a lot of ocean covering up everything around us. We're living on the hills. Right now, we're living on the hills, what the earlier people thought of as hills. That's where we're living right now, and plateaus. These people were more lowland, so this area would have been bigger. But because it's a rectangular plain, it's an island in the Atlantic, ancient people may have seen this and said, oh, if there are older versions of this, and we've shown that this Dukley line bisects the land area, Silbury Hill in the middle, so it's like a pyramid. You can quadrisect the land if you want, the same as ancient Egypt, the same as a Mappa Mundi. That's why they did it like this. And it's absolutely incredible, people. This is unbelievable. Anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video. These are the maps that generated the Atlantis legend, helping to explain some of the Atlantis legend. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Cheerio. Give me a big fat thumbs up. Smash the bell so you don't miss out on anything. And have a great day.